Hey guys, it's Paul Trimmer here from Puerto Vallarta. I'm a real estate agent here who helps people buy and sell real estate in Puerto Vallarta. But today I want to have a conversation with a property manager and a booking agent on how that looks, because a lot of my clients who are coming here to buy real estate, although their intention is to retire here one day, they're looking to buy now and then rent out their property on Airbnb and those other platforms, so that just to cover certain costs, the HOA costs, maybe a little bit of an income, with the intention of retiring here in 10 years' time. We're in a booming market here. The prices have been going up, and for a lot of clients, they want to buy something now, lock it in, so they ask me then, well, if I'm not going to be living here for 10 years full time, it's just going to be a vacation home, how does it work with renting out my property as an international buyer, someone who's living not here in Mexico, but they're wanting to rent out their condo here in Mexico. So we're going to talk to Mary, a property manager, who is going to give us some insight on that. So let's go meet her. Hey, all right, so we're here with Mary. She is a very well-established property manager and booking agent here in PV. How long have you been here?
I've lived here for 30 years. I've been a property manager for 20.
Okay, wow, very good. So let's get straight into it. First of all, what is the difference between a property manager and a booking agent?
Okay, a booking agent just gets you bookings. So they handle your online platform, or maybe they have their own website. They answer all the inquiries. They're dealing with the guest until they arrive. And then that's it. Then the property manager takes over. The property manager checks the guest in, is available during their stay if they have problems, does the checkout, checks for damage. So that's what they do for a booking. Besides that though, their real important job is to do the maintenance on your condo or house. So they should have vetted contractors. They, do a weekly site visit when it's not booked. They basically take care of the condo, when it's not booked, but so that you don't have to. So if you don't live in Vallarta, they take care of everything.
Right, and is that sort of like in the summer when it's humid, they're keeping it sort of cleaned, breeze?
Absolutely.
Opening it up to stop the mold.
Exactly. The property manager should do 1 or 2 site visits a week when it's not booked. I always tell owners they should actually have a housekeeper come in once a week, 2 at the least. Because if it's closed up, you live here, mold grows, and it's called prevention. You want to make sure you're preventing any kind of bigger problems.
Right. And also, does a property manager pay sort of the bills, the utility bills?
They can, if you have that agreement, if you want them to. Now you can pay almost any bill online. So a lot of owners pay their own bills. But I still pay bills for people, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sometimes just to take the anxiety out of it for some people living up in the US or Canada, just knowing that someone is on the ground dealing with the electricity bill, that obviously they're paying for it as the clients, but the internet, the yearly property tax, things like that. Yes. And opening the apartment up or condo up to just breathe is great value.
Yes.
All right. So so when would someone choose one of those services? Do you suggest that everyone should have a property manager if they're coming in and out of town, not all the time? They should have a property manager dealing with the property management side. When would they get a booking agent? Could they do that themselves on Airbnb from up in the US, or should they have someone here doing that?
They can do it themselves if they want to take the time to do it. Some people do. I've worked with people where the owner does all the bookings on VRBO or Airbnb, and then I'm truly just a property manager, and we worked really well together. I'm thinking of a few owners, but that takes time.
Right.
To do it right, it takes a fair amount of time. If the owner doesn't want to do that and they want to rent, then yes, they need to hire a booking agent.
Yeah. And then in today's market, what are the best platforms to get renters? So Airbnb being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Airbnb is probably the best, and second I would say VRBO.
Okay.
If you have those two, you're gonna do fine in Vallarta, I think. Some people do booking.com. That one's a lot more complicated. I think you actually have to have an established business in Mexico to do that. They have a lot more requirements just to get on the platform. And then there's some free things you can do that you'll probably get 1 or 2 bookings a year. People still go to Craigslist, believe it or not, and even local Facebook pages.
Right. Okay.
People
The
that
Facebook
have been
pages
here
are pretty
once or twice and know what those Facebook pages are, do go to those.
Right.
And that's free.
And what I've noticed as well is a lot of the time, so the same people will come back for the same year in and year out. So when you kind of have a year or two on Airbnb, you get to know those people. They want to come back to the same place the first week of February every year, or the whole month, and so you get a lot of repeats like that.
You do.
Yeah.
Sure. Especially January, February, and March.
Right.
You know, the people who come from Canada or the north of the States, you know, they're escaping the cold. I have like 3 of those people right now.
Right.
And yeah, they come back, and then, you know, that you want that. That's what you want, because they're good guests. They don't damage your apartment, and that's what you want.
So say if like a client that I sell a property to them, they close at the notary, they're going to rent out their property. What's the next step? So I sort of finish with my job, hand them over to you or another property manager. What happens then?
Okay, the first step is you need to get a written agreement in place with your property manager, and that becomes the job description. So it says, you know, the name of the property, what the property manager is going to do for you, like a bullet list. It's very specific things. And then at the bottom, this is how I do it, I put things I don't do, and this is based on experience, because some owners have asked me to do that and I just don't do it. And then I put things I do, but at an extra fee. And then it should say the monthly fee, how it's going to be paid, like Venmo or whatever, or a bank transfer, and then we both sign it.
Right.
And that protects me and the owner. It's very clear. I'm going to do this for you. You're going to pay me this much. Sometimes owners want the property manager to do everything in the world, and they even treat the property manager like a personal assistant.
Right.
And that's not so.
Yeah.
You know, or if you ask your manager to do something that's not on the list, you should offer to pay them.
Right.
But that's the first step. Then you list it. You choose your platform, you get good pictures, super important, very good pictures you need. Your cover picture has to be amazing, that first picture. And then off you go. You just get it up and running, start answering the inquiries, and you'll start getting bookings.
Right. And do you think, you know, with over the last 5 years, with all the new buildings that have rooftop swimming pools, do you notice as a property manager, the buildings that have the rooftop amenities, security, the central location, do they tend to rent much better than the older condos that maybe don't have a swimming pool, or they have a very old swimming pool?
They do, especially in this neighborhood, especially in the romantic zone.
Right.
People want that, you know, people who can afford that, let's say
Right.
that. You know, budget travelers might not look for that, and they can't afford it. So they're gonna look in other neighborhoods or for an older building. But yeah, you need the amenities. You know, if your building has a pool, a gym is nice. Not absolutely necessary a gym. If you're down in Old Town, there are 2 gyms. So that's not a deal breaker, I don't think. But yeah, fully equipped kitchen, you know, everything has to be nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for people like, you know, when someone buys a property down here and they plan to rent it out, you can get very excited, it's an exciting thing, but then the reality of the day-to-day running a business, an Airbnb business in a different country, can settle in, and you realize there's more to it sometimes. And so what are the downsides? What are the things that people don't think about when they first hand a property over to you to rent out?
Okay, well, if you have to furnish your apartment, well, major appliances are easy to buy. Furniture is tricky. You just don't have the options you might have back home. But it can be done. Sometimes you might need to have something made actually by a carpenter. And the other thing that people always say, like newcomers, is how long it takes to get anything done.
Right.
And that can be frustrating. But that's where your property manager comes in to help you. And if you just recognize the process here, the way they do things, as a valid process, like some people go, oh, you know, and they're always comparing it to back home. It is a process. It's very slow. Things will get done, but it's frustrating. And in those cases, just rely heavily on your property manager, because if you have a good property manager, she knows how to get things done.
Right.
It's still going to take a long time,
Yeah.
but she'll get it done.
Yeah. That is one thing with foreign buyers coming here.
Yeah.
It is a slower process here, and you kind of have to relax into it a
Yeah.
little bit. And yes, pre-construction, you definitely, some resales, the property will be furnished. Pre-construction, you have to furnish it yourself. If you're going to do that yourself, you know, you need to come here for a couple of weeks to do that and oversee it all. If you're going to pay someone to do it, they can take care of that whole process, but you need to pay for that. So that's important with pre-construction. And yes, and when someone buys pre-construction, the property is built, finished, delivered. Furnishing can take a month or two, because they're sourcing things from Guadalajara and places. So, you know, if your delivery date is September, you're likely not to be renting out for till November kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of months. So you do
Probably.
need to keep that in mind. Also, what I think a lot of people don't realize when they've never done Airbnb is the wear and tear on things.
Yes.
And I have an Airbnb in New Zealand. When I started, I had beautiful white sheets in a holiday destination, and people would come back from the beach with sunscreen or a bronzer sunscreen, sweating, and have an afternoon nap in the white sheets and ruin the sheets in one go.
Right.
And I learned very quickly not to have white sheets.
Right.
And so little tricks of the trade like that, right, are important. The darker sheets, and not to get frustrated when someone breaks a cup or two. You have to replace it. Those are, I guess, some of the wear and tear that can happen with rentals that you need to think about, and not get too stressed about. That's what happens when you're having 3 or 4 day bookings. People come and go, they're on vacation, and is there anything else to add to that?
Well, I think you also have to know when to charge the guest for damage.
Right.
You know, some owners just say, oh, it's the cost of doing business for everything, and they absorb the fees, the damage. But I just had an owner who had some damaged sheets that were $100 sheets, and he got the guest to pay for it.
Right.
And there's a way to do that and not, so that your guest isn't mad.
Right.
Like your property manager can say in a nice way, to the guest that you're responsible. Like make it known that I will be checking for damage.
Right.
It can be done. I do it that way. So yeah, the owner has to decide. Now, of course, there's things that are really clearly damaged and that are expensive and that the guest should pay for. But like a towel and a cup, the owner has to decide if they're going to charge for that.
Yeah. Now, so what makes a good property manager, do you think?
Okay, first of all, here in Mexico, your property manager must speak Spanish, because They need to know how things work. They need to be able to go to the light company, go to City Hall. Those people do not speak English. So that's the first thing. And they need to have their own vetted contractors. Very important. People that they've worked with for years, a plumber that if they call, they're gonna be there. Very, very important for the maintenance of your property. And then they just need to be someone you can work with. It has to be pleasant,
Right.
you know.
And also reasonably responsive, like in sales, you need to be responsive to.
Absolutely. Communication. In fact, I always put that on my agreement. You know, open lines of communication with the owner. Very important. Very important. I'm a good communicator. Some people aren't. If you're doing business and someone doesn't answer you for, in 24 hours, you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's important. You have to answer quickly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we were talking the other day, is you were saying how some people are afraid to, if they're not happy with their property manager, to get another one, right? Because you want to be happy.
Sure.
With it. So,
Sure.
Your advice on that is like if you've got a property manager, you're finding that they don't kind of return your calls, you don't feel comfortable, it's not working, consider changing. There's a lot of options in town, isn't there?
For sure, there's a lot of options. Just, start looking. Ask your friends if you live in a building, ask the other owners, do an online search, some of these Vallarta Facebook groups,
Yeah.
talk about those things. Just get the ball rolling, start interviewing people. It can be done rather quickly, actually.
Now, what are the costs that people should be aware of? Sort of a market rates of, having a property manager and then having them do the booking as well.
Okay, property management fees start as low as $125 US a month and go up to about $300 a month, that's year round, depending on the size of the property and the job description. Okay, so you have to come to an agreement with your manager. Now, if you have a villa or a property that's really huge, it's going to be more than $300 a month,
Right.
because that really becomes almost a full-time job.
Right.
But we won't talk about those properties right now. Then a booking agent in Vallarta charges 20% of the booking fee, of the booking, right off the top.
Yeah.
And everyone charges that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So anything else we should talk about? Any other downsides? Anything for people that are literally waking up and going, maybe I'll buy something in Vallarta and rent it out on Airbnb. Anything else they need to know, think about, be aware of?
Well, some people think Airbnb is just magical and you put a picture online and you start getting rentals. There's a lot of work to it. And treat it like a business. Treat your property, even if you don't rent it, treat it like a business. Be on time if you have an appointment with your property manager. Don't cancel, because we're running businesses down here. Watch your expenses so that your profit margin goes up. I mean, it's doable. You can make money on a rental in Vallarta for sure.
Yeah.
But you need to think of it as a business, not a hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I notice sometimes it can take a year and a half to really get the systems in place, right? The flow, realizing how much you can charge at this time of the year and how much you charge at this time of the year. And I noticed with my Airbnbs in New Zealand, it took me about a year and a half till it was cooking. It was a good business. So sometimes I think people need to be a little patient just to get the check-ins and the check-outs all flowing.
Yeah.
Well.
That's true. I mean, I don't know if it would take a year and a half, but if you have a nice new property down here in the romantic zone and it's high season, you should have it fully booked. If you have a good booking agent between, let's say, November and April.
Right.
I mean, maybe a day here, 2 days there, but you know, you really should, if you have that kind of property.
Yeah.
Now, if you have something that's older, a little bit further out, that may be a little bit more work
Right.
to get it booked a lot. And then after April, you do have to get creative. You have to maybe drop your rates.
Right.
But some of those properties in Old Town are booked, I mean, literally year round.
Right.
We don't have that down summertime like we did before all this development took place.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if you have any more questions about buying and renting out properties here, please get in contact with me and I'll have Mary answer those questions. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I hope that video with Mary provides some insight and value to you. If, of course, you're going to have more questions, so please get in contact with me and I'll have either Mary answer those questions or myself. And if you think buying here in PV could be an option and renting out your property on Airbnb or one of those sites, or even long-term rentals, and you just want to invest here, please get in contact with me. I would love to help you out. I can talk to you about, you know, your budget and the neighborhoods you're wanting to buy in, and what type of tenants you would be getting in those neighborhoods, and even maybe the sort of the likely income you might be getting from those properties. And if you haven't already joined my newsletter, go to my website, join up to my newsletter. We just need your email address, and that way we will keep you updated with all the new listings, the new developments, educational videos on how to safely buy real estate here in PV, and of course much more. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to meet you one day in the future. Bye.